And welcome to this sad moment that we have together as we take this opportunity to say goodbye to Paula. We have this beautiful opportunity as we join together today here to not just wish her farewell and to be here to be a part of that, but also to be a part of the telling of the story of her life. We know that that is a really important piece of what we do together. I am Rabbi Emily Hyatt, and I'm grateful to have been a part of hearing that story and having the opportunity to share it with you today. In case this is your first Jewish funeral or your first Jewish funeral in a little while, there's essentially three parts of this experience, three things that we're going to do. The first thing that we do is prepare ourselves for the hard work of saying goodbye. We do that with the Psalms and the songs of our tradition and the poetry. The second thing that we do is to tell a little bit of the story of Paula's life. And then the third thing that we will do is to say goodbye to her physical presence with us here. And we will make our way to the cemetery so that we can formally do that and say goodbye. So I'm going to start with a poem called The Sacred Pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination. And life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness and loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude and from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding and fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat until, looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. I turn now to the words of Psalm 121. We'll talk more about this in a moment, but especially when I hear the stories of those who were born in Denver, who are second generation already, like Paula was, Coloradans. I am always drawn in those moments to the words of Psalm 121, which begin with these words, I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? And we know the mountains are this sense of rootedness for us here in Denver. We always know where they are. We sort of always know which direction we're facing because we know where those mountains are. And so as we think about this moment, if we think about Paula's departure from our life, that sense of rootedness and that sense of orientation that we might get from her, the sense that it's almost 5 o'clock, so you have to make sure that you have called her, Leanne, and talked to her already, right? She is an important part of the everyday, that making sure that she's okay, making sure that you have checked in with her, right? That is a sense of time and space and rootedness that is no longer. And so we reroot ourselves in the now. And so maybe we know that there are other senses of orientation that we can call on. I'll share with you the words of Psalm 121. Shir lema'alot, esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai osei shamayim va'aretz. Al yiten lamod raglecha, al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan, shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, ve'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeitecha uvoecha me'ata ve'ad olam. A song for ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. And God will not let your foot give way, and your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life, your going and your coming, now and forever. And as I was thinking about all of the pieces of Paula that I heard about in the telling of the story to me, one of the poems that stuck out to me, which I'll share with you, is by a poetess named Zelda, who wrote these beautiful poems that are often based on tradition. And so we have this beautiful piece of our tradition from the Midrash Tanachuma that says that everybody has a number of names, the name that is given to you by God, the name that is given to you by your parents, and the name that you give yourself. And those are three really different names. And when we say names, what we mean, I think, is that those are different parts of our identities. And we know that for people who have multiple parts of who they are, that Paula was certainly a mother and a grandma. She was also a loving and devoted sister and sister-in-law. She was also a loving and devoted friend and wife and part of a community, and had so many other relationships that were important to her. And often, I think, had really different relationships within those. She meant really different things to different people. And so I'll share with you this poem about all of the different names that Zelda would say that Paula has made for herself. Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile, and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longing. Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death. And so with those words, we turn now to one more psalm piece of our text in this part of our service. And this is Psalm 23. And most of us are familiar with this psalm on some level, regardless of what faith tradition we might come from, because it's the one that says those really famous words, as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Our sages teach us that though it may seem like the person who walks through the valley of death is the person who has died, we actually have a second way of looking at this, that we are the ones who are walking through that valley at the moment. It's a valley that is full of shadows. A valley is low. Feels like we have gone down in order to get here. And as we were talking about just a moment ago, Gail, this moment, right, is full of almost like unnavigated numbness. You've never been here before. It's a totally new valley for each of you, with different paths and different roads. And there's a lot of powerful words in that one line. So it's okay to be low. It's okay to feel like you are in that valley. And we also know that we walk through that valley. It won't feel like this forever. And so much of our job is to look for the parts of Paula that brought for us little bits of light and made it feel like we weren't so low, and little bits of love and little bits of guidance. And we pull those out, and it helps us to feel just a little bit less like we're in that valley, or at least like we're not in that valley alone. Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar bino deshayar bitzeni. Al mei menuchot yana haleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'magalei tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech begates al mavet, lo ira ra ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha, hema yenachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neget zorarai, dishanta b'shemen roshi, kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures. God leads me beside still waters and restores my soul. God, you lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. And even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. And so we turn now, even though we've thrown in tiny little pieces of it, we turn now to the formal telling of the story of the life of Paula. And as I was thinking about her and her story, I happened upon another poem, Occupational Hazard, which I will share with you right now. This is by Rabbi Lawrence Kushner. And he says, there must have been a time when you entered a room and you met someone. And after a while, you understood that unknown to either of you, there was a reason why you had met. You had changed the other, or they had changed you by some word or deed, or even just by your presence. An errand had been completed. And perhaps you were a little bit humbled or bewildered or grateful. And then it was over. Each lifetime is the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. For some, there are more pieces, and for others, the puzzle is much more difficult to assemble. Some seem to be born with a nearly completed puzzle. And so it goes all the time. Souls are going this way and that, trying to assemble the myriad parts. But know this, no one has within themselves all of the pieces of their own puzzle. Like before the days when they used to seal jigsaw puzzles in cellophane, making sure that all of the pieces were there. Everyone carries with them at least one and probably many pieces to someone else's puzzle. Sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't. And when you present your piece, which is worthless to you, to another, whether you know it or not, whether they know it or not, you are a messenger from the Most High. And so today we get to think about all of the puzzles of all of the pieces of the puzzle that belong to Paula, but not just the pieces of her puzzle, but the pieces of your puzzle, which she knowingly or unknowingly gifted to you. And so Paula was born in Denver in 1942 at Rose Hospital. She was a second generation native. Her parents, Joseph and Blanche Goodman of blessed memory, raised her right in central Denver in Hilltop. She went to Hill Middle School and then to East High School. Her mother went to East. I understand some of you are fourth generation East Angels, which is pretty cool. She attended CU before she was married, and she married Arlen, the father of Kevin and Leanne. They were married in 1961. She was later married to Doug, and they were married for 27 years before he passed. And as we think of this story, of the story of Paula, and of the pieces of Paula's puzzle, here's what I learned about her puzzle pieces. Number one, she was an incredibly dutiful and devoted daughter to her parents. She was incredibly close to her mother and her sister and her father. She was even close to extended family members and cousins and Hirschfelds. She found all of this meaning in the closeness and in the gathering of family and the ability to be together with extended family. And she was really, really the tightest knit with her immediate family, with her parents and with her sister. And even at moments when relationships with extended family were slightly less close as life went on and people moved and they weren't all in the same place, it was still really important to her. And that is something that she, in fact, also gave to her kids when they were growing up, that they were always with that extended family and that she prioritized that for them, that they would get to be with grandparents and cousins. And they would always go when Paula was growing up to their aunt's house every Saturday. They would visit the aunts, and all the holidays were always all together when they were kids. And so we know that she was incredibly committed to her family. That is a puzzle piece that stands out so large. And that translated into her being an incredibly devoted wife, that she was committed to the families that she was building, to being a part of them, and to creating and trying to create in those families a sense of relationship and a sense of togetherness. We also know that she was really committed to her friends and that she had relationships outside of family that meant a lot to her. I heard a lot about the girlfriends, about playing bridge, about going shopping. When asked what her friends would say about Paula, if asked, they would probably say that she was feisty and reliable, which is a great combination in a friend. To be just a little spicy, but also to be there and to be present. So much so that friends have said to Leanne and Kevin in recent days that they loved her dearly and that they will always have an incredibly special bond. But there's a puzzle piece that even goes beyond that, a little bit outside of just family and just friends, that she touched the lives of even the nurses and the hospital staff that she interacted with in recent months and days, that they were always really glad to take care of her, that she built beautiful relationships with them. There is a particular and powerful story about the dog walker who became almost like family as the dog walker helped to take care of the dogs that Paula had, and that those people that in some places would have been, right, adjacent or outside of family, they were included and important and a big part of her life. And so we have those puzzle pieces, those of her relationships to her family, to her friends, to the people that she came in contact with in all of her life. And there's another puzzle piece that is devoted to her children and to her grandchildren. And in that puzzle piece, she has passed down an enormous legacy to all of you. And our puzzle pieces that we get from a person are pieces that help us to understand how we want our puzzle to look, that help us complete our puzzle, that teach us how we want to show up and to be parents, how we want to show up and to be parts of family. And she has gifted you great knowledge and great understanding about how you see family and how you want to make your own puzzle look. And so in the story of Paula, we know that she was proud, really proud of her kids, really proud of her grandkids, always asking, always bragging about her grandkids and their accomplishments. We know that she was devoted to her sister, to her parents, to her friends, to her family. She was tough. The story of Paula has her going through some stuff. She had some real health challenges and real complications throughout her life, and she was really tough, and she made it through a lot. We also know that there's all these other pieces of the puzzle that I don't know where they fit into your puzzle or into hers. Like, she loved a fancy restaurant. And when she was growing up, her grandparents and or her parents would take her to fancy restaurants. And then for you guys growing up, you went to fancy restaurants with the grandparents in Denver and in Boulder and the Red Lion Inn all the time, and French restaurants. And one of her puzzle pieces is your most excellent fancy restaurant manners and knowing what to do, right? That's an important puzzle piece. We know that she loved a cocktail, that she was always stocked up on cigarettes and vodka, even when she was on oxygen. We know that even in the face of complicated, perhaps even, really serious diagnoses in her life, like lung cancer, that it really only held her back from who she wanted to be and her lifelong habit of smoking for like maybe a day on either end of a surgery, which is a testament to her commitment to exactly what she wanted to do and being herself. We know that she loved adventures, that she loved to travel, that she went to Alaska and to Europe and to Israel. In her healthier, younger days, I heard stories of snowmobile trips and then a real commitment to snowmobiles after that, and always wanting to go on those kind of adventures and be a part of that, particularly with Darren. That she really enjoyed that kind of, I don't know, adrenaline or a wild ride or going to visit and adventure in new places. And she always collected things on her trips and brought them back and got to look at them and see them. And the one story that I heard, which is like particularly wild, I think, is that I think, Gail, you were living in Alaska. Okay, wow, from the beginning. Okay. And you had to take a seaplane to get to visit Gail in a house that did not have plumbing or electricity. So, okay, you see where we're going here. And then the most impressive part was that you had to take a shotgun with you to the outhouse, which are, I don't want any of those words in any sentences about my life, but when you put them together in particular, that is a wild sense of adventure and openness to try a thing and go and experience it and see what it was going to be like. She had a great sense of humor. She liked a birthday card that had a little edginess to it, Kevin. We also know that she gathered the people to her. She really loved Stacy. She really loved Darren. You guys were really important to her, even as you were not a part of her family from the beginning. And in her own way, most importantly, I think, she was a really powerful force in her family as a mother, teaching her children a lot about parenthood and about how they wanted to show up in the world. She helped you to be independent. She helped you to feel capable and qualified of making those decisions on your own, however you wanted to show up for your kids and for your family. And even in that independence, one of the things I find to be the most moving about her and your story is how much you were there for her, and how, Leanne, you talked to her every day. And you said yesterday, you're like a little untethered at the moment, right? We find that when we have these moments of rootedness, that line that connects us to the ground and keeps us from just floating away, it gets cut. And we have to find other ways to connect ourselves to solid ground. And you will. And it makes perfect sense that in the moments after you lose that tether, life feels deeply strange and you feel like you are floating away. Kevin, the stories that you told about taking care of her and her dogs and her technological needs, right? And every time she would not know how to do something or not know how to fix something, she would call you and you showed up, which is pretty amazing testament to you as children, to you all as her family, to all of you as her community. And so as we close out this just beginning of telling the story of Paula's life, maybe you think for just a minute about whatever the puzzle piece is that you are taking from her. Maybe it's one that you've had for a really long time that you know that you have, and it's solidly placed in your puzzle. And maybe it's one that you are taking from this story today that feels like it has given you a different perspective on her or on how you want to be. One of my favorite parts of my jobs is actually getting to take all of these puzzle pieces from all of these stories that I get to tell about people I didn't even know. It's so beautiful to get to learn from those that came before us and figure out who we want to be moving forward from that. And so you all have little pieces of Paula. Maybe you have giant pieces of Paula. Fit them in your puzzle. Take them with you. We are going to take a moment of silent prayer, and then we will conclude our service here and tell you what's next. With that, I invite you to rise as you are able for our memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar, Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Yakireinu Shahalecha Leolama, Bal Harachamim Yastireha, Beseter Knafav Leolamim. Bitzror Chaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'tanuach B'Shalom, Al Mishkava V'nomar, Amen. God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold Paula close to you forever so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you, and may she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude our service here at Feldman Mortuary. We have an interment at Emmanuel Cemetery, which is within Fairmount. If you'd like to join us at the cemetery for interment, we'll ask you to start making your way as quickly as you can. Please don't delay with conversation in the chapel or the foyer or the parking lot, because we're going to start getting the family together and start making our way immediately. We are not in an escorted procession, so if you choose to follow the family cars and the hearse, just like we will need to, you need to follow all traffic laws. We will ask you to refrain from coming forward and speaking with the family. It will delay their process in getting out to the cemetery. There is Shiva information where the family will be receiving people after the funeral service, after the burial, and there are also directions to the cemetery if you would like to pick those up on your way out. Thank you all for your attendance.